So today I'm going to show you how to make a dress in one night. Da-da-da-da. It's this! It's cute! But I took 6 hours all night. I've had 4 hours of sleep. So let's just get right into it. These are the patterns you need. I only gave you like 5 seconds to look at them. Basically, you're cutting 2 of each. Make sure you flip one over, and it doesn't look like I'm paying too much attention to where they are placed, but I am lining up the grain lines with the fabric line, which you can do if the weave is very obvious. You can just line up the grain lines with those. I am also only pinning in the seam allowance on these patterns because it is pleather. We'll probably discuss it a few more times in this movie. Do not pin anywhere but inside of the seam allowance, or you will have holes in your costume and it would suck. A magic! Now to cut out the red. This is the fabric that we have. It's not my favorite fabric because red doesn't really go with my hair, so it bothers me. This is the only fabric I could find that was Emoji, so that's where we're going with. We have 4 patterns for the top, and I didn't make a pattern for the skirt because you don't really need it. You could care where the placement was, but I don't. So we're gonna cut this out and then, oh, let's get them cut out. These are the lining pieces. You can see that's the front, side, back. And these are the pieces that are not lining. These are the front and the back and side, but the self. This is why you label them, because you have no idea which ones are the front and which ones are the back. That's the front and back. Yay! Let's sew it. Never sew pleather like this. Your machine doesn't like it, or at least mine doesn't. Mine hates it if you do it like this. It gets stuck on the plate. So what you do is you sew it with this side down. Bobbin. When my hair is up in a bun, you know that it's time to do a tutorial. Ha! Or sew. Just basically just sew. Just keeping it real, guys. Just keeping it real. Okay. I have all these. So, it has a line. Right. See the center. Side fronts. I'm gonna do the front first. You line up those notches. Only pin in the seam allowance. Don't go. That's why we did the stitching there, so we could see where the seam allowance was, because if you poke holes in this, it's not gonna look good. Keep it in the seam allowance. Then you pin this one. Keep it in the seam allowance. You shall be fine. Haha. You kind of ease it around the curve. I'm gonna look like the tired emoji tomorrow. Sorry, the sketch was kind of rough. It was a rough sketch. Then you're gonna sew this again, a 1/2 inch, just like this side. Tired. It's 1:30. It's a lot earlier than I thought it was gonna be, but I'm so tired. Back to work. Quit slacking. Ta-da! And then you just repeat that with the lining, which you didn't mark because you're stupid. I sew over my pins just because I may break a needle every once in a while, but it really isn't that big of an issue for me. Disclaimer, if you choose to sew over your pins and your needle does break off and fly into your eyeball, it's not my fault. Sew at your own risk. So, you can't really see much of a bunching, but you see how it pokes out like that? That's because it got gathered underneath of it. So, you have to take that part out and re-sew it. See, if you stretch it though, it does curl under. So, a way you can avoid that is to clip it to release the fabric. And you can do that before you sew it so that it'll lay flat. I am just lazy, so I do it after. Snip, 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 snip. You can use an ironing ham to iron the seams, which is what I did. Ironing hams, not to be confused with the delicious meat. These are two very different things. So, where we are right now. Blah, blah, blah. It looks weird! The lining, we're gonna iron it this way, not this way, because the self has this way, but this way is this way, so this is this way. Time for top stitching. This is the lining that I'm top stitching. When it comes to the outside shell, we call it self. You top stitch on the red, do not top stitch on the black. I mean, you can. The red fabric is much more forgiving than the black fabric. The black fabric will show any flaws that you make and you can't take it out and redo it. It'll just leave holes. Side seams are difficult because you have that seam to line up. What I have found makes it so much easier because I used to have a huge problem with that. Don't worry about the ends, just worry about that seam. And when you pin it, pin where there is the most amount of fabric. So where the fabric is folded over or ironed down, that is where you pin, right next to the seam. Don't pin it on the other side because it'll warp the seam that you do. It won't line it up. It's really annoying. But if you pin right there, it'll get you the seam right more times than not. I've noticed you pin the seam first and then you pin the rest of it after. We're doing our first fitting right now. You can see there's a little bit of gap here, which is fine. And also, it's not pinned at the top because I can't reach it. Oh. Hold on. I should have put a zipper in first. So, since I did it on my mannequin, which is my size because I live casted myself, which was a fun experience. It was cold. It fits pretty good. So, ta-da! Ironing the top shoulder seam is rather difficult. You have to have a pressing cloth because if you don't, the pleather will stick to your iron, and that is annoying on so many levels. So you hold it flat, put the iron on top of it. See, store-bought patterns are useful for everything. It's not gonna lay flat completely, and that is okay. See how well that came out? It's perfect. So let's pin and sew that neckline. Snippity snap snap snip that neckline so that it will lay flat and the understitching will go so much easier. So this is the understitching. You're sewing on only the red fabric, and I'm sorry about this angle. I didn't realize that the fabric would bunch up this much. We're gonna iron it so it stays flat. Yep. Second fitting. Neckline's done. Gotta do the arm things because you can't really see it because I have a black shirt on. But we're gonna do the arm holes, and then I had to cut out the skirt, measure and cut. Da 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 da. Woo! So this is how I learned how to do armholes. You match up the center, the seam underneath of the arm, and then you fold it under so you can grab the seam allowance. Make sure that is pinned, and that is basically the only thing you are pinning for the rest of this around the arm. Make sure it's in the seam allowance and make sure it's perfectly lined up. What you're going to do is you're going to sew, and you're going to line up the fabric as much as you can, and you're going to sew until you can't sew anymore, and then you're going to turn around and do the other side. So create a nice clean effect. But the reason why we do the neckline first is because it looks much better, and you need to understitch the neckline, but you do not need to understitch the armhole. When you stop on your armhole to turn it around and do the other side, backstitch. Very important. So I was lazy and didn't make a pattern for the skirt, but then I decided that I needed a pattern for the skirt. And this is a circle skirt, a full circle actually. You cut around the edge, and I needed to leave a little bit of space on the side for seam allowance. As you can see, there's a little bit of space. And that is my cat, who really likes it when I cut fabric on the floor for some reason. And I'm cutting 4 of these out. I will have to cut one of them in half so that I can have an opening in the back. Because you would have to change the pattern and add a 1/2 inch to either side. I just took a little off of each of the seams so that it would fit perfectly and be able to give me that 1/2 inch seam allowance in the very center back, so that I could have a zipper. You could also solve this by putting a zipper in the side. That is totally possible, but I didn't think about that until I had sewn up the sides completely, so there's that. And you don't have to use as big of a zipper. You can use a smaller zipper. Oh well, hindsight's 2020. I ended up with a lot more fabric than I needed, but that's okay. I can use it for something else. My kids, when I brought home the fabric, my kids were just like, "Mommy, I want something of that. I love that." And they're like, "I want a blanket." I usually bring home remnants that are fleece, so that they always get blankets whenever I come home from the fabric store. I brought them a really cute hedgehog blanket, and they wanted the emoji one. I'm pinning the bodice to the skirt. I didn't film the actual sewing of the seams on the skirt, but there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, there are like 5 seams on the skirt, and yeah. And that seam, after you sew it, I serged it to finish it. You could put ribbon around it, you could do a whole bunch of different things to finish it. I'm not really pulling the fabric through the machine. I am trying to just direct it for some reason. If I just direct it from the front, it tends to veer off. And so I have to use both of my hands because I'm not as skilled as I thought I was. There's no perfect way to line up the fabric. It just kinda, especially the way that I had to cut the skirt, there's no real way to line it up and make it look pretty. So they kinda look like sports balls, like basketball, baseball kind of thing. Ugh, I'm so tired. Almost done. Almost done. It is 5 o'clock. I have to be up. Let's see, when's the party? This is really well planned. Party is at 12:30. If I go to bed right now, I can get 6 hours of sleep. So, bit of a snag. I forgot to buy a zipper. That was long enough for this dress. And so I have this invisible zipper, I have this black zipper, and I have a metal zipper that's only 12 inches long. Usually when you're doing a back zipper, you need at least a 20-inch zipper because you need it to go past the waistline so that you can get in your dress. We're gonna be doing buttons at the top, it looks like. Yay, buttons, I hate buttons. So this seems to be my go-to because it's a lot easier than buttons, and I hate buttons. Buttons are annoying. Take so long to do. Anyways, these are my go-to, and they'll work because I only need to do this little space. 5 snaps. It'll look fine. I'm going to do black snaps. It's gonna look awesome. This is why sewing in the middle of the night is not always a good thing. You can make mistakes like sewing the zipper on, but the zipper is off by like an inch because I didn't check because I'm tired and I just want to get it done. This is the problem with sewing late at night. Don't do it. Plan your days out. Get it done on time. The diaper snaps are so fun because all you have to do is stab a hole through the fabric, poke the piece of the snap through, and then use the little doohickey squisher bobber and just squish it into place. And they look so cute. I have both sides. I have this side, and I have this side. I have the male and female side done. And this is what it looks like on the outside. Like, how nice is that? That looks awesome. And now I have to sew the zipper back on correctly this time. I have it pinned in the middle where the seam actually meets up. So I have to line this up. When the sun starts coming up and I've been working on a project all night and I'm not done and the sun is up, I feel like a massive failure, even though I'm not. And I'm working hard and I'm almost there. Still, when the roosters start going and the sun comes up and I know that I only have a few more hours and I need to sleep. Gigantic failure, that's what I feel like. You know what? Stow those feelings, we still got a long way to go. Gotta see how the skirt falls and then trim it and then sew it. I'm gonna go to bed. It looks fairly even to me. I don't know. I think it's fine. I think it's great. I think I'm gonna just serge the bottom, sew it up, and be done with it. Might actually take it up a bit. Because it'll look. Yeah. I don't know if that filmed or not, but I am serging the hem and then I will be finishing the hem with a tiny fold hem. It's now 6:25. I've been working on this dress since 11 this morning. 7 hours from pattern to completion. 7 hours. You can do it, you just don't sleep at night. So in the hem, I'm only doing one fold. Usually you do two, but I'm only doing one because I was running out of time and I wanted to go to sleep so badly. After you sew it, you should iron it. And I'm done. Cute little dress. It's so adorable. I love it. So how do you think I did? Make sure you tell me about it in the comments down below. And if you could click that like button and subscribe for more videos of costumes from concept to finish, that would be awesome. Thanks so much for watching. See you next week. Bye. I've had 4 hours of sleep. I have to go.